Hey, this is Jeremy, owner of Shine Insurance Agency and your host on the Shine Insurance YouTube channel. I'm here with AJ O'Reilly, owner of Felt Creative and Marketing Guru. We're going to talk today about the seven things that you need to understand if you're going to have a complete marketing program from beginning to end. So we're going to dig into that right now. All right, so AJ, I think there are basically 7 things that you need to do to have a really great marketing campaign. But I guess the first question is, why do we need to market? Any thoughts on that?
Well, if a tree falls in the woods, is anybody there to hear it? So
Yeah,
I think marketing is really just telling your story.
All right.
I mean, really, that's what it is. And so you have to market because you have to tell your story. So
yeah, and telling your story, and I think that's what we're going to dig into here is telling your story and telling your story to who. I think that's where it goes. So let's start with number 1, and I think that really is your brand. So how would you describe your brand to someone?
Well, the common way that people talk about it, or the way that branding people and designers talk about it, is they say, well, your brand is not a logo. And that's sort of where I always start, is that, like, think about everything else that you do. It's your culture, it's your space, it's the product that you have. That is your brand. And so branding is just a way to sort of package that up visually and with messaging to sort of get that out in the world and have people understand what it is and figure out whether it's for them or not for them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me in our agency, our brand is us. Like, it's like, how do I put me as a human being, Mackenzie as a human being, into some kind of package, and then it goes out there and we say, hey, this is who we are. Like, this is what we're into, this is what we do, this is how we run our business. And if you like that, great, we're a great match. And if you don't like it, then maybe we're not for you.
But yeah,
and just be you.
Yeah,
just be you, right?
Just be you, and that's really what brand is. It's you. It's you packaged up, and you being the business or whatever, or the product. That's what branding is. Yeah.
Cool. So, and I think about it. One of the first things I did was realize that my brand needed to just be me, and so figuring out who am I, but then also figuring out who are some of the brands that I look up to, like who are the businesses that I want to do business with, because I like who they are. I like the connection with them. I like the feeling when I purchase things from them. And why are they that way? What is it about them that makes them the way they are, and why do I like that so much? And so not only is it about figuring out who you are, but it's about figuring out how your brand mentors are, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I have tons of brand mentors.
Absolutely.
People that I steal stuff from and figure out that they do it really nicely, and I like that, so I'm going to kind of adapt it to what I'm doing, but...
Yeah, that's reminding me of the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Klein, I think is his name. And he talks about how artists over the course of time have, just naturally stolen from each other. And stolen makes this like negative connotation, but really just like taking ideas that you got from your mentors and then integrating them into who you are as a person and what you do. And that as a person, as an artist, as a creator, or as a brand, all those things really are the same thing.
Right.
Cool. All right, so step 1 is to figure out who you are. Is to figure out, we can use the word brand or whatever we want to use.
Personality.
To
story,
figure out
whatever that is that you're doing.
Yeah, so we want to figure out who we are. Okay, then what's step 2?
Step 2 is figuring out your tribe. So figuring out who the people are that you're talking to. This is super important. This sort of, when I talk to people about branding and design and website stuff and everything like that, I want to know sort of who that target market is. And that's sort of tribe, right? I think a tribe is in the term tribe is sort of people that are like passionately following you, right? But they don't get there. You can't identify your tribe without identifying who that target is first. And so that's where I always start, is who are the people that you're trying to go after? And some people are, well, we're helping everybody. And that's really is what gets you into trouble very, very early on, is that when you're serving everybody, you're really serving no one. And these are common things that, you hear over and over again with, famous people online talking about, but I think it's really good to sort of reiterate that, is that, you need to focus in, and I think, it's been said many times that the riches are in the niches, but I think that also goes back to, like, figuring out who that tribe is, maybe small first, and then sort of widening out.
Yeah, I mean, it's like finding out who your ideal client is. I totally agree with you that tribe starts with your ideal client and who that person is. And not just like, oh, well, my ideal client is like people who need insurance. I mean, that's not specific enough. It's like my ideal client, my specific ideal client for one part of our business is a 25 to 30-year-old person who's purchasing a new house and is kind of coming into that adult phase of their life where they really need to manage their finances and manage their home. And that is the type of person that I'm looking for. I could name that person almost and then make that my ideal client. And then from there, now that I know that my ideal client, I need to like meet them and then start to build a tribe where they really appreciate the work that I do for them.
Yeah.
So it starts with ideal client and then builds into tribe.
Yeah, and then to work back to step one, right? It's looking at brand and how brand sort of engages that tribe. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I think about like, well, a logo is not going to engage that tribe, but a story, man, that's going to start to engage a group of people to make them fall madly in love with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
So we're just talking about love.
We're just talking about love, man. I mean, I think about walking into... I think when I'm thinking about marketing, about a party all the time. I use that metaphor in my brain. Like, if I walked into a party and I met someone that I'd never met before, like, how do I describe myself? How do I tell the story about my kids or my dogs or my story? You know, I don't go in there and I say, hey, you should really like me. I'm like the coolest guy in the world. You're going to love me.
That's what I do.
That's what you do? How well does that work for you?
It's not working very well.
You know, like you go in and you tell your story. So in some ways, that's your personal brand. When you sit down with somebody for the first time and just chat with them, you know, that's your personal brand. And whether that connection is made is kind of whether they're your ideal friend in the business world, that would be your ideal client. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that a lot. Like when I see people having commercials, like those car commercials on TV where they just kind of yell at you, I really think about like if they walked into the middle of a party and just started yelling, like how well would that go? Would they make friends?
Yeah, I mean, it also, you know, the party metaphor is good, but also like you got to think sometimes like have you ever watched a commercial for a car and then got up and been like, we'll go buy a car right now.
I have called them and said I will never buy a car from you because I hated that commercial so much.
It doesn't. Yet, for some reason, people continue to do it over and over again. Yeah. So, in some regard, maybe it does work, but I don't think that's how. I don't know anybody that, you know, going off of that car example, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know anybody that is passionately following an auto dealer.
No, not a dealer that's doing it that way. Right. I'm sure there's some examples.
I mean, maybe a car like manufacturer, but certainly not a car dealership. I don't know anybody that's like, you got to go to this car dealership. Like, I love them.
Yeah, that's funny though, because a car manufacturer completely flips the script for me. Like the way Subaru, for example, the way they do their commercials, like I personally really connect with them, right? And I always I think to myself, wow, they're doing it right because they've connected with me as their ideal client. Although I don't drive a Subaru, but
Subaru is an interesting, you know, example because what they did early on is they weren't getting a lot of traction in the U.S. and they identified the lesbian market, and they identified that tribe, and that became their tribe, and that's sort of how they got a really big foothold in the U.S. and sort of really, I mean, made a dent and made a name for themselves, and that's how it started. That's how that marketing campaign did really, really well.
They connected with an ideal client, and it worked perfectly. Wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah, granted, that's what I think. So that story could be
the history.
There could be a little bit of,
but like finding. I mean, that's a great example of like finding an ideal client, someone who you say like, okay, I want to connect with this group of people. I think these people would connect with us as well. Let's figure out how to tell our story in a way that makes that connection. And I think that works a lot of times in the way we do things. So, step one, brand, who you are. Step two, tribe, the people you're trying to connect with. This is not like rocket science stuff, nor is it really new in a lot of ways. It's not something that marketers have are estranged to. But I think the next thing we're going to talk about is something that hits the real new part of how marketing works in the modern age and in the future, as opposed to how it went in the past. So step 3, what's the third thing you need to do in a marketing campaign?
I mean, it's have content, right?
It's like make stuff. Yeah, it's have
Make
content.
stuff, you gotta have stuff.
Yeah.
What I like to say for people with content is because people are like, I gotta make all this content. It's really, really stressful.
Yeah,
right?
I'm in that boat.
I get it. What I always say is think about content like throwing a pebble into the water, right? If you can get one piece of content that then ripples out. So if you have, a video and you can strip the audio from it, you can take, screenshots of it, and you can make a PDF download from the content that you did. I mean, it's certain repurposing this content for a bunch of different places, and that sort of branches that content out. So you can sort of leverage multiple distribution points for one piece of content. But the content needs to be something that people actually want to look at and listen to. And again, going back to the previous one, right?
Yeah.
You can look at your tribe or look at your ideal client and you can get content from them.
Like, what do they want? What are they doing?
Yeah,
what are they up to? Yeah.
One of the things that I always start out doing is asking that client, talking to that client. Well, what does your day-to-day look like? They'll start telling you all of the things that they wish they had or that they don't have or that they hate, and that's the content that you can create. So your content marketing, if you're doing content marketing, can be just that. It can be stuff that sort of helps them out in the day-to-day. How I like to look at it is I like to say, how can we create our most ideal client? What content can we give them to where when they finally come to us, man, they are going to be so easy to work with.
They're like, this is my people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, sometimes people just want to create content and they're like, okay, I think this will be cool, and then they spend a whole bunch of time creating it, obviously getting all the lights and cameras and all the things they need to do, and then create this content that nobody wants to listen to because they didn't do that first step, which was what do my ideal clients, what does my tribe want, what do they need, how can I make their life better?
Yeah.
And one of the first books I read was Jay Baer's Utility, which is really all about that. Like, how do you as a brand just do good for the people that you want to attract?
And I didn't even read books to get this. I looked at some of my favorite content creators are not even publishers, right? Like my favorite content creators is Rafa Cycling that does cycling clothes, and so they have amazing videos of road cycling, which is sounds really dull, but they're really, really great videos.
Not if you're a road cyclist.
Right. And then Patagonia, who just produces a ton of content that is outside of just selling apparel. And their catalog is an example of that, where, I mean, half of their catalog is just stories and articles. It's not even clothing that you can buy.
Well, they're such a great brand on so many levels, and I know we'll talk about them as we dig further into all this stuff, because they're just a good brand. One of the things they do is, just take good care of the environment and all the things that they profess to be about as a brand. They back it up with actually being about. And I think that's part of it,
and going
too.
back to their tribe, they know who they're serving.
Yeah.
And they know who they're not serving.
Yeah.
So.
So we've got our brand, we've got our tribe, we're starting to create content, and I think you kind of dug into this a little bit, but really I think the fourth step is how we get that content out there. And I think when you and I talk, a lot of our conversation is about this piece, like how do you get your content out there, and what are some of the just surface avenues that you think make a lot of sense?
Well, I even start one step back. So what I usually tell people about distribution is, where are you personally already going, right? Are you on Twitter all day?
Yeah.
Are you, do you like writing emails? If whatever you like doing, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because typically you're going to find some people that connect to that avenue as well, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to be everywhere, but if you pick ones that you actually like, the production of it is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is that like making it to where it's not a burden. You don't need a third job on top of your.
No, I feel like I have one sometimes.
Have, right?
Yeah.
So you need to do content. And you need to distribute that content in a way where it's sort of easy for you, right? And that's sort of my tip that I always give young businesses, in particular entrepreneurs that are wearing 16 different hats. One of them has got to be distribution of content, and just make it easier on yourself.
And do what you're already doing.
Do what you're already doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on social media pretty much only as Shine Insurance. Like, I have personal Twitter pages, I have a personal Facebook page, I have a personal Instagram page. I haven't been on any of them for very often, recently, because when I go out into that world, I go out as Shine because I don't have time to be on social media for myself and for my business, and I'd rather be on there for my business, frankly.
And I'm the opposite.
Yeah?
I'm not on. I don't. Felt doesn't have any.
So you're on there
social media.
personally,
I'm
and
on
that's
there
just your thing.
personally.
Why is
And
that?
I think it's because I feel sort of a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Because there's tons of agencies out there. There's tons of resources about marketing
Yeah.
online and digitally, and
So it's like, how do you? And I think that's a problem that any business has,
Yeah.
especially when
Yeah.
their world is saturated. Like the marketing world is totally saturated
Totally.
when it comes to distribution, online distribution. And so how do you navigate that? And I think we'll dig, in future videos into this a lot more for sure. But I do think that's an issue for insurance. There are not as many people out there who are really doing the distribution of great content well, at least not at this point. I think more and more people are starting to do it. But so I don't have as saturated of a market as you do.
Right, and I mean, it's also, I think, goes back to sort of leveraging who you already work with, right? Like an insurance agency, like the number of clients that you serve is maybe 100 times what I do. I don't have an online course. I don't have, I'm dealing with a handful of clients, very high level, very, very white glove, touch points. And so to me, it's not important to get a lot of people. I want to serve a little bit of people really, really well.
Right.
And my distribution doesn't, even though we do Facebook stuff, and we're going to build a Facebook chatbot for the agency. I don't feel the need to have us be blasting a bunch of stuff on social media. I feel the need on, getting coffee with people.
Yeah, and the other side of
with people on the phone.
Yeah, the other side of that is that you are doing that for other people all the time. So you're like building a brand for other people.
Right.
So the idea of then turning around and building your own brand out there, especially if you already have some of your ideal clients that you're working with, is not as necessary for you. So distribution, definitely a key part. If you're going to create content, obviously you want to distribute it and you want to get it out there, or that content is worthless. And so the avenues that you put that content out there are key, and there's lots of them. That could be social media and yeah.
And that's the thing that I hear from a lot of small businesses, right? It's like, well, I don't know where to be.
Yeah.
I need to be everywhere. And it's like, nah, don't stress out about it. That's what I tell people all the time. Pick one, do it really well, give it some time to figure out what, none of this stuff happens overnight.
Yeah. And there's some tools that we can share that really, if you want to be everywhere, if you want to be on, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and whatever, then, you can use like a Buffer or a, different kinds of programs that get you out there.
Yeah. The thing that I like to, kind of asterisk on that is these different platforms have different users. And so the user of Instagram is going to be different than the user of Twitter. Right. And so the content needs to be just slightly different, I think, to get the most out of it.
So then if you're putting it out on the same, if you're putting the same thing out to all those avenues, then maybe that's not the most effective way to do it.
Maybe it is. I don't know. I would love to invite somebody from Buffer, the CEO maybe.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will discuss that.
Talk through those details.
I don't think that it does. I think that Buffer, for me, what it does is it helps automate that process a little bit, where I can batch stuff.
Right.
So I can do a lot of content in a 2-hour period and then make that drip out over time.
Yeah.
And sort of give people that in a very easy way.
And you can create like one message and then go into Facebook and adjust it, and go into Instagram and adjust it, and go into Twitter and adjust it. So there's ways to, do all the things that you're talking about that make a successful campaign through a program like, Buffer or one of those kinds.
Yeah.
And go from there.
But I mean, certainly if you're a small insurance company, right? Like, I mean, yeah, like get your word out in the community, like the best you can. I think that's the difference, right? If you're a national company, you want to be highly targeted and really give people personalized type messages. But if you're an insurance agent in an independent insurance agent in a small city in one town,
right?
I mean, you know who your market is. It's that one town, and
right.
maybe there's a smaller sliver of that, but like the distribution, like figure out where people are getting it in the town. If people are going to a basketball game or something like that, that might be an avenue of distribution, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be digital.
Yeah,
is the other thing.
No, that's true. I mean, I think traditional models are newspaper and radio and TV and all those kinds of things too, which have their place. potentially in the process.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But I think also, I think less about those and more about events, in-person events, partnerships with other businesses, local businesses in town. I mean, these are things that are not digital.
Like
They're
giving
not social
back,
media.
you know, being
Right.
in a 5K run for
Exactly.
whatever.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So distribution, I think, really helps. So you're creating content, you're getting out there, and I think that creates a lot of top of mind, which I think every business needs, right? You need to be top of mind so that if one of your clients says to someone who isn't a client, hey, you should definitely work with Shine Insurance Agency, that's not the first time they've heard of them. I think all research says that the more someone knows about a company before they're told by one of their clients or referred, the better off the process is going to be, the better the feeling is going to be, the more likely the closing of the deal is going to be. So top of mind makes sense, but I think the next thing, really step 5, is something that I know I haven't mastered yet, but I would love to master, and that's simply creating a funnel. So having your funnel, and maybe just tell us a little bit what a funnel means to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's one side of the coin, which is an automated funnel that people can go through that process automatically and I never have to interact with them, right?
So that's like I go online, I see something cool, I click it, I give them my email address, suddenly I've got a message in my email, which gives me some kind of great asset that I really wanted. And now they're sending me emails maybe here and there, or I'm a part of their tribe in that way.
Yeah, but essentially what I like to describe it as is sort of this breakdown of you're just walking people down a journey. So I like to say, well, from the start of talking to them until the end purchase, and maybe even further than that, what is that journey? What is that process? Because the amount of people that you hit on the top is not going to be the same number, and it's probably going to be much bigger than the number that comes out at the bottom being customers.
Yeah,
so
somebody's going to
that's why they call it a funnel, right? And I like to think about it more of a journey because I go through it more of like sales too. So it's it's walking people through that sales journey, walking them through the marketing journey. It's getting them from point A to point B.
Yeah, from just getting to know your brand to getting to know the depths of your brand and what you can really do for them. Like that process, maybe somebody sees your brand and decides to buy right away, but that happens a lot less often than someone seeing your brand and then kind of wanting to get to know it a little bit more, wanting to know some referrals, wanting to see some content or some information about you as a brand.
Yeah, and that's why I call it a journey and rather than a funnel, is because that getting to know your brand, right? I mean, no one is gonna see your ad or see your tweet or see your ebook that you made and is gonna call you up and purchase whatever product you have. It's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about it like dating, and not to say that dating is like a sales funnel, but
no, it is. You're getting to know,
right. And so the idea is that like you need to sort of have these touch points with people, and down that path they should self opt out somewhere along the path.
If you guys don't match, you're not dating anymore.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So didn't work out. Yeah. And so I think I like that, whether it's a journey, into getting to really know your brand, or whether it's a funnel just for the basic purpose that funnels get smaller at the bottom, and that tends to be how the journey works, is that fewer and fewer people kind of come down and really match with you in the end. But whatever that process is, if you can turn your content and the distribution of that content into something that brings people closer and closer to ultimately becoming clients, then that's where the real magic starts to happen.
Yeah, and there's plenty of software out there that can help you automate that process. But even if you don't automate that process, just having it identified, and we'll talk about this later, which is the ability to identify what that process is, will help you track it, analyze it, and then fix it.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing.
Dig into step 6 then, which step 6 is the sale, is the act of someone going from not a client to a client, going from not a customer to a customer, becoming a part of your tribe by making that purchase. And obviously there's lots to talk about there, but this is part of the process that people probably focus on the most, right? Because if you can't handle the sale, then what good are you as a business? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's a hobby.
Right.
If you're not making money at it, it's a hobby.
Yeah. Right.
And so I think, yeah, and I think the big thing is just being, for me, it's like not being afraid to ask for the sale.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Like your business, and if your product is good enough where you really think it serves people, you should have no problem asking for the sale.
Yeah.
I have no fears of asking people for checks.
I do.
You know, I don't.
Yeah.
I like it, like, because I know that there's value in that.
Yeah.
In that exchange.
Yeah.
So I know for some people it's very hard, and it tends to be a subject that when I talk about it I come across very harsh. But it's if you're not making money as a business, it's a hobby,
right?
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But hobbies don't pay mortgages. So.
Yeah, no, and I really think for us the sale process is just like really taking good care of people. So like the point they come in and say, hey, will you provide me a proposal for business insurance or auto insurance or whatever? At that point, I'm going to be on time. I'm going to make sure that I get it out there with the best product I can. Hopefully, I'm going to have a price that's comparative to, you know, other people and what they're seeing from other people. I'm going to show them the kind of person I am in that process. And maybe that's the deepest part of the funnel above the sale, is just really like, you know, making sure that your brand, who you are as a person, comes across in that real sales process. And then hopefully they instigate the sale. They're like, let's do it.
That's the best one, right?
Yeah.
The best sales funnel is where you don't even have to add. They're like begging you. So
yeah.
Like, take my money. That's what everybody wants.
Yeah. Like, hey, I want to be a client. I want to work with you. You've proven to me exactly,
right,
you know, who you are as a business. And that's step 6 is really when you get that person into your tribe as a part of your business. And then finally, step 7, I think the most important and probably the most underused or under whatevered step in the process, and that's simply analyzing the first 6 steps and how they're working.
Right.
Would you say that's a pretty important part?
Well, you know, the thing that I always tell people is, you know, you have to analyze, and not only that, but you have to track everything.
Yeah.
What gets tracked gets fixed.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people all the time, right? What gets tracked gets fixed. So you have to track as much as you. I mean, you don't have to overwhelm yourself by it, but you have to track everything, because if you're not tracking it, you have no idea whether it's performing. You have no idea how to improve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can sort of, you know, improve it, and obviously the goal is to make your business better and make more profit.
I mean, I think the analysis, as I've become, you know, when I first started as a business owner, I didn't really know a ton about analyzing things. And I'm still like, I could be so much better at analyzing, particularly this marketing side, our funnel, you know, how all those kinds of things are working. But the analysis side, when it comes to how your business works, even if that's like your profit and loss and your expenses versus your income, like all those kinds of things, I just love to analyze. And I feel like when I walk away from an analysis process, whether that's for marketing or whether that's for just looking at the success of the business and the health of the business, I have answers. You know, I mean, a survey is an analysis, right? Where you, when someone leaves our company, or when someone has a renewal, or someone has a claim, at the end of all those processes, we ask for a survey. And in some ways, that's feedback. Maybe you would argue that's not analysis, but in some ways, that's like the client analyzing the process for you and really giving you some insights into what happened there, so that you can change, you know, how you do business. So analysis, to me, while all these steps are super important, probably the most important part of the process, and what great business owners do and succeed at, is knowing what they're doing right, knowing what they're doing wrong, and fixing it, and being humble enough to say, hey, this doesn't work. Even if I think it's a great idea, it doesn't work. It's not making sense. Let's shift, right? Okay, so let's go back through them. Step 1, creating your brand, knowing who you are. Step 2 is kind of your tribe. Like, who are the people you're looking for? Who's your ideal client? And who are the people that you really want to scream out there in the world, hey, my business is the coolest, and here's why. And then content, really creating information for people, helping people to do their lives better, to have a better life, to have a better experience, whether that's on topic with your business or even not on topic sometimes. So creating content, how you get that content out, so distribution, like how that content goes out into the world, how you make a funnel out of it. So the content went out into the world, how do you turn that into people being interested in your brand and wanting to kind of get to know your brand a little bit more, and then making sure you give it to them so that they have that brand a little bit more, and they get to know you a little bit better, and they're much more and more likely to make a purchase from you. Finally, like making that purchase, which is the sale. And then ultimately the very end, the end point and the wraparound back to the beginning is analysis, where you're really looking at what am I doing, how am I doing it, how's it relating to my tribe and my ideal clients, and what can I do differently to make sure that it relates better. And I think the people that understand how to analyze their business and make those adjustments and changes are the ones that we see succeeding over and over again. Sound pretty good?
Sounds good to me.
Special thanks to AJ O'Reilly for taking the time to break down the 7 steps to marketing nirvana with us today. You can find AJ at feltcreative.co. That's FELTCREATIVE.co. Music for this episode is by Mark Vinton. The show is produced and edited by me, Jeremy Goodrich. If you enjoyed this podcast, there's a couple of things we need you to do right now. First, subscribe to Scratch Entrepreneur on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud so you can hear future episodes as soon as we release them. While you're there, please give the show a review. We'd love to know what you liked, what you didn't, and what you want to hear next time. Until the next time, we truly appreciate you listening.